Respected Professor S.K. Patel, Dean Academics, NIT Rourkela, respected distinguished speaker of the day, Professor Ramesh Gaur, Dean and Director, IGNCA, New Delhi, all the esteemed faculty members, dear scholars, students, and all whoever is participating in this event. Very good afternoon to one and all. First of all, on behalf of NIT Rourkela and my own behalf, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar, which is scheduled on the topic Understanding Research Publication Ethics, Falsification, Fabrication, and Plagiarism. I express my sincere thanks to all the participants and everyone whoever has joined this program on this day. On this occasion, we have with us a very well-known and eminent personality, Professor Gaur. Before we begin this session, I would like to request Professor S.K. Patel, sir, to please say a few words and address the virtual gathering.
So thank you, Mr. Tripathi. And let me first thank Professor Dr. Ramesh Gaur on accepting our request to spare some of his valuable time in taking this webinar and share his knowledge among our research students and the faculty members. And in this series, we have been organizing a series of such lectures, and this is one among them. And I believe that Professor Gaur is the befitting persons and is the right persons who would be giving this talk today. And I wish that the talk is a success and our faculty members and the research students will be benefited to a large extent from this talk, and we'll move ahead. So without taking much of the time, I once again thank Dr. Gaur, and I request him to take this to deliver his address in a lecture on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we begin the session, I would like to just give a brief introduction of Dr. Gaur, sir. Professor Dr. Ramesh C. Gaur is presently Dean and Director, Librarian and Information and Head Kala Nidhi Division at Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, IGNCA, New Delhi, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. During the period October 2011 to January 2018, he was the University Librarian at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. His past assignment includes Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, TIFR, CRRICSIR, RIS, New Delhi, Management Development Institute, MDI, and IMT Ghaziabad. Gaur sir has visited 24 countries so far and is a Fulbright scholar at Virginia Tech, USA. He also has received 14 awards in recognition to his exemplary work. Professor Gaur is the first Indian nominated as a member, International Advisory Committee, UNESCO, Memory of the World Program. He is also member of Expert Consultation Committee for setting up International Center on Documentary Heritage in South Korea. He is member of many other important national and international professional bodies. Important affiliations which are as follows: member Governing Council InfilmNet, member of Research Council for CSIR, National Institute of Science, Communication and Information Resources, New Delhi, member International Consultative Committee on Digital, Dunhuang, China, NDLTD Board of Director, member Governing Body, Sahid Sukhdev Singh College of Business Studies, University of Delhi, member of UGC Draft Regulation Committee of Plagiarism Regulation 2018, expert member IFLA Program Advisory Committee on Global Cultural Heritage and various other committees of International Federation of Library Associations, member, Data BIP Advisory Board, USA. It is really a honor, sir, to receive you on today. And once again, on behalf of all the participants, on behalf of NIT Rourkela and my own behalf, we all welcome you to this webinar, sir, and request you to please take over the session and deliver talk on the topic scheduled today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor S.K. Patel, Dean Academics at NIT Rourkela, Dr. Tripathi, Assistant Registrar Academics and Assistant Librarian NIT Rourkela, for inviting me and for your kind words of introduction, DP. You are a dear friend, so you always try to highlight many things. I don't know how much I deserve in those things. So thank you very much. And the topic which I'm going to speak, understanding research publication ethics, and specifically I will be highlighting on falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. So let me share my PPT. And DP, you know the limitation of this platform, that I'm not able to see the platform. I will be only seeing the PPT. So please take care that if voice is not clear or any PPT is not visible, just remind me, because I'm not able to see it. So let me just see the PPT.
Sure, sir, sure.
Just remind me, because I'm not able to see it. Let me just see the. Can you see my PPT, TV?
Yes, it is visible now, sir.
Okay. So thank you, and
just a minute, sir. The screen is not visible at my end. Now it is visible, sir. You can proceed.
okay. So
हेलो
thank you all, and now
ए उनका कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव वाइवा है
I'm starting my talk, and the topic which I'm going to speak is understanding research publication ethics, falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. So in the beginning of my talk, let me just give you some idea about various UGC regulations and guidelines concerning research publication ethics, and particularly plagiarism and other areas. So as a research student, as a research supervisor, as a person who is managing research in your university or institution or college, you are supposed to know all these regulations. The first in the series was in 2009, this UGC regulation on minimum standards and procedure for the award of annual PhD degree. Under that regulation, it was mandated that every university, college, institution awarding the PhD should submit electronic copy of the thesis in the uh, Sodhganga repository created by InfluMnet Center. So you should ask your student to submit the electronic copy of thesis, and I'm sure your library will take care of the rest of the work in coordination with InfluMnet, and your PhD thesis should be submitted in the Sodhganga repository. Now, there was a second important regulation, that was a UGC promotion of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher education institution, regulation 2018. I was the member of the committee which drafted these regulations. We'll let you know little detail on next slide. Then in 2019, there was an initiative called UGC Care List of Quality Reference Journal. I'll be speaking to you about this particular regulation in the end of the presentation slide. Then UGC also have approved a 2-credit course on research and publication ethics, which is mandatory for all the PhD students as a pre-PhD coursework or part of your PhD program. So every university institution has to uh, create this 2 credit course, and library is the best place to start the course, or help the university or institution to conduct this 2 credit course. Then on the basis of certain doubts, the clarification on self plagiarism was issued by UGC in 2019. Very recently, just last week, there was some guidelines, uh, which is called Good Academic Research Practices. So this is known as a GARP. So this good academic research practices has been launched in just released just last week, and it is important to understand and know. There is one important thing in this GRP which I will highlight in form of Office of Academic Integrity. So when we talk about this UGC regulation, this is mandatory for all in PhD awarding institutions, and they have to create a proper plagiarism policy by giving proper definition, creating opportunity for awareness and training, and taking various measures for curbing the plagiarism by providing various kind of plagiarism detection software. And it is also important for each and every institution to form 2 level of academic integrity panel. One is at the department level and another at university institute level. In case of NIT, there is different department. So department level committee in each department, and then a senior level and NIT level committee. See, as per the regulation, departmental level committee is supposed to investigate the matter, and institution level committee decide on the punishment or decision on the consequences of those issues. And penalties have to be laid down according to the criteria adopted in these regulations. Up to 10% similarities, there is no punishment on that. But 10% similarities doesn't mean that you can copy something equal to 10% and say that is excluded. That is not the case. This 10% clearly mentioned is that kind of coincidental terms or some kind of common knowledge or something which is unavoidable, like similar materials and methods. So those kind of 10% similarities are excluded. When we talk about punishment, there are level 1, level 2, level 3. So this is mandatory. Every institution should lay down a plagiarism policy based on the guidelines of this 2018 plagiarism regulation. And this plagiarism regulation policy should have certain kind of because these awareness or kind of guidance is regularly required. So all these topics which I have mentioned in this slide should be included in the plagiarism policy. It should be talking about defining plagiarism, types of plagiarism, how to detect plagiarism, various kind of FAQs on plagiarism, and also how to avoid plagiarism, a guide for the students, a guide for the teachers, what is citation, various kind of referencing. Everything should be well explained in this particular. If you see the universities abroad, most of the universities are having a well-defined plagiarism policy, but unfortunately in India, despite of so much efforts, still there is hardly any university or institution who have a well-drafted plagiarism policy. In this good academic research practices document, which I mentioned was just released in last month, this month only, there is a recommendation in that document that there should be Office of Research Integrity in every institution. Like in NIT, we should have an Office of Research Integrity, and that office should talk about various issues and take care of ethics, take care of various kind of measures, research to ensure the high quality, reliable research. It also talk about ensuring relevancy in the research. It also talk about transparency. It also talk about respect for IPR, respect for colleagues, respect for students, like a ideal mentoring, and also impartiality without any biasness in doing research, in conducting research, in analyzing research. And also, talking about the autonomy of the research functions, and also need to fix some accountability. So this Office of Research Integrity has been recommended by this document released by UGC. The only issue is that a lot of such recommendations have been made in past also. Problem is that implementation, how to implement it. So this is the one area. So that these are some administrative issues which I want to bring your attention. Now let me define you what is academic integrity or research integrity. So basically, when we talk about research integrity, it is broadly refers to the thoughtful and honest adherence to relevant ethical, disciplinary, and financial standards in promotion, design, conduct, evaluation, and sharing of research. Uh, According to the U.S. National Institute of Health, there are certain kind of uh, objective of the research integrity, like use of honest and verifiable methods in proposing, performing, and evaluating research, reporting research results with a particular attention to adherence to rules, regulations, and guidelines, following commonly accepted profession, professional codes or norms. So these are the this is the broad definition of research integrity. When we talk about ethics in research or research ethics, there are a number of starting from problem formulation to the final submission of result. It's about honesty in doing research,
Sorry to
honesty in DP. DP, yes.
sir, actually your voice breaking little bit. So participants, they are saying that it is not clear.
Okay, so let me just try to change. Right now I'm using Bluetooth. So let me put the other mic, then you let me know how is the voice. Just wait. DP, can you confirm how is the now? Is there any improvement? Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, you are saying something.
Hello.
Now it is clear, sir.
DP, can you confirm how is the voice now?
It is okay, sir. Now it is clear. You can proceed, sir. It is clear now.
Hello.
Hello, am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. How? What about? Am I audible? Is voice improved or?
Yes, sir. You are audible, but little bit the voice is breaking. It is not clear.
Okay. So it may be because of the low internet connectivity.
Maybe,
So
sir.
what?
Maybe. So,
Okay.
you
So
can
now what
continue.
is?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let me continue and let me know if I need to raise the voice. So basically, when we talk about honesty in doing research, honesty in performing research, and various kind of issues concerning objectivity of research, integrity of research, carefulness in doing research, openness, reliability, fairness, all these issues are part of ethics in research. Uh, Similarly, respect for intellectual property, use of robust research methodology, maintaining confidentiality, responsible publication, responsible monitoring, high standards of mentorship and supervision, respect for colleagues, and various kind of social responsibility, awareness of our issues, and various kind of issues concerning legality and animal care and human subject protection. So all these issues which are uh, ethical decision making, ethical norms are part of the ethics in research. But here in my presentation, I am focused more on research and publication ethics. So, what are these research and publication ethics? These are also known as
research misconduct, or scientific misconduct means errors, falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. Basically, it is the violation of standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior in the publication of professional scientific research. So there are various kind of issues concerning this research and publication ethics, issues concerning authorship, data ownership, peer review system, conflict of interests, and also various kind of commissions, consents, and different kind of animal subjects and human subjects. So all these set of common rules among authors, editors, reviewers, and publisher to protect integrity of the scientific record are known as research and publication ethics. And these research and publication ethics, based on consensus of about standards and best practices, ensure the integrity of scientific records, ensure that readers can trust what they read. So basically, when you publish a good article, when you publish a research, it should be based on your honest work. It should be published by following all kind of ethical norms and issues. And there are some more research publication issues which you can say that publishing the same paper in two different journals without telling editors, including a colleague as an author on a paper in return of a favor, even though the colleague did not make a serious contributions to the paper, discussing with your colleagues confidential data from a paper that you are reviewing for a journal, using an inappropriate statistical techniques in order to enhance the significance of your research, bypassing the peer review process and announcing your results through a press conference without giving peers adequate information to review your work, conducting a review of the literature that failed to acknowledge the contributors of other people, rejecting a manuscript for publication without even reading it. So these are the few of other research and publication ethics. So let's talk about major issue which I am talking here is research misconduct. So basically, why we do research? To contribute or to extend knowledge. How do we do this? By building on the work of others. Means no research is possible without referring existing knowledge. Knowledge in form of articles, in form of books, in form of various kind of research publications. So you have to refer. There is no harm in referring various kind of research article. But the major issue is that when you are reporting your research. So when you are reporting your research, you are expected to place your research in the right context to show that you are aware of what else is happening, to show that you understand where your work fits. So your report must contain an analysis of similar relevant works. So when you are reporting research, there are certain rules, there are certain ethical norms one has to follow. And one of the very important norm is that you have to make a clear distinction between what are your own ideas and what you have borrowed from different readings and references. So this distinction is very important. And this distinction, an idea can be anything. It may be written, oral, non-verbal, print, non-print, published, unpublished. Any kind of idea, any kind of information which you are using in your research writing, you need to define, you need to properly cite it. So you have to make a clear distinction between your ideas and idea you have borrowed from others. And why it is important? It is important that your reader, examiner, supervisor, they should able to understand difference between your own work, your own ideas, and ideas you have borrowed from others. So that distinction is very, very important. And if you are unable to make that distinction, you are committing an error. And that error may lead to plagiarism in research. So this plagiarism in research is defined a kind of research misconduct, means fabrication, falsification, or any other practice that seriously deviates from practices commonly accepted in the discipline or in academic and research communities, generally in proposing, performing, reviewing, or reporting research and creative activity. So let's start with fabrication. It is an intentional act of plagiarism. It may be referred academic fraud. It is also known as a kind of research misconduct under which somebody is making up data or results and recording or reporting them. Let me give you an example. There was a student in IMTech Chandigarh. IMTech Chandigarh is a CSIR lab, and that student went to South Korea for some research. And after returning from that place, he talked to his supervisor that I have done some wonderful piece of research, and I have collected certain data, and with the help of the supervisor, he published about 7 articles in different journals. And later it was found that data was fake data, and all 7 articles were based on fake data. So after that, the supervisor and student both were rusticated or terminated from the institute. So this is a kind of like uh, uh, making up data in various disciplines in various ways. So this is the fabrication. Now then another intentional act of plagiarism is called falsification. So falsification is manipulating research materials, equipment or processes, or changing or omitting omitting or suppressing data or results without scientific or statistical justification, such that research is not accurately represented in the research record. This would include the misinterpretation or certain uncertainty during the statistical analysis of the data. So you are manipulating data or results or various kind of methods and materials to get some desired result. So this manipulation uh, is called falsification. This is also an academic fraud or intentional act of plagiarism. Now, moving ahead, what is plagiarism? Plagiarism basically, you know that it is an act of stealing someone else's work and attempting to pass it off your own work. And this can be anything, like it may be in print, non-print, oral, music, or all kind of intellectual creation. There can be plagiarism. Now, all plagiarism cases are not intentional. There are certain cases where person is not doing it intentionally. It is an unintentional or accidental plagiarism, like using minimal or careless paraphrasing, failing to document or cite properly, quoting excessively. 60% contents are from quotation. It can be a original paper. Failing to use your own voice to present information or ideas. Many of us are not very confident in writing in English. We comes from different mother tongues. So what we do, we try to cut paste some text from different English publication, and that is also plagiarism. People don't know how to use different styles of documentation. Sometimes we are not citing properly. Sometimes we are mixing up ideas of writers together. We don't know how to cite properly. So there are a number of reasons, knowingly, unknowingly, we are committing mistakes in properly writing our research papers and books. So here needs a lot of awareness, and that is called unintentional plagiarism. Now, the another category of plagiarism, which is called self-plagiarism, like you are copying material of your own work and producing it is as a new production. So basically, in this case, many people have mindset. This is my paper. I can use as many times as I want. That is not allowed. Your paper and my paper is the same. So there is no way you can use it as it is. Even UGC has given clarification on self-plagiarism. Reproduction in part of whole one's own previously published work without adequate citation and proper acknowledgement and claiming the most recent works as new and original for any academic advantage amount to text recycling is also known as plagiarism. And there are a number of examples like republishing the same paper already published elsewhere without due and full citation, publishing smaller accepted work from longer and previous without due and full citation in order to show a large number of publications, reusing data already used in your published work, breaking up longer, larger study into smaller sections. So all these kind of salami slicing, redundant publishing, and all these things somebody is doing is also considered plagiarism. So you have to be careful that you should not do that. Now, many people say that plagiarism is an ethical issue. I don't think so. It is not an ethical issue. There are penalties, there are consequences of plagiarism, and these consequences are sometimes very uh, typical and critical also. Like a student can be restricted, a degree can be revoked, a faculty can be terminated, increment can be stopped. So there are a number of penalties, and UGC has very clearly given the guidelines for these kind of penalties in UGC Plagiarism Regulation 2018. This I have already informed earlier also. It's not the students only. It has been found people at highest level have been found plagiarizing the content. This German education minister, she has to resign, and her PhD title was removed because it was found that she has systematically and deliberately presented intellectual efforts that she herself had not generated in her PhD thesis. There were some doctors in Abdulaziz Medical College in Gulf region. This was the case I was referring. IMTech Chandigarh. Uh, there, this kind of case was found. Even some guides have stolen the material and contents of his own colleague. Sometimes, like people at highest level have been also penalized and asked to explain. This gentleman was one of the 11 authors in a paper. This paper was retracted, and in the disgrace, he committed suicide. Similarly, there was a case in Bhai Bir Narmad, South Gujarat University, where a MPhil student, she submitted her MPhil and awarded also. But later it was found that her MPhil was based on plagiarized content. And in the disgrace, she committed suicide. So uh, there are a number of cases. People are aware of that. A lot of information is available in public platform. Even publishers are aware of that. Now, what publishers are doing to stop this plagiarism? There is a committee on publication ethics, which was established in 1997. Almost every publisher and every editor, every journal is the member of this committee. It's more than 10,000 members currently enrolled. So this committee on publication ethics has developed certain guidelines for pre-publication plagiarism checking and post-publication plagiarism checking. And after detecting the plagiarism, COPE has given certain recommendation or guidelines on plagiarism punishment, penalties. So basically, according to the COPE, it is a minor case of plagiarism. If paper has been submitted, author may be asked to rewrite the paper. In case minor case of plagiarism, paper has been published, author has been asked to correct it. But if it is a major case of plagiarism, so in that case, if paper has been submitted, rejected, if paper has been published, retracted. Apart from that, it also required to inform the institution of that author that so and so person from your institute has been found plagiarizing the content. So this is the committee on publication ethic guideline. There is another committee on basically related to the medical journals, and that is called BHAMI. BHAMI is also given a lot of guidelines and instructions for the medical journals and editors and reviewers and authors working in medical, biological, and biotechnology and life science. So this is also important to know for a science student because many of the policies of the core may not have these guidelines. So it is important to understand that also. Once the paper has been found plagiarized, publishers have different way of dealing with it. There is no uniform method of punishment. There is no like uniformity between two publishers. Depending upon the situation, they take minor action or intermediate or severe action. Uh, and this vary from publisher to publishers as they may have different policy, and all these policies and guidelines are given in the guidelines to authors. Retraction cases are increasing, have been increasing from 2001 till 2015. From 2015, the retraction cases are found uh, decreasing or something like decline. And what is the reason for that? Reason is that most of the publishers are now having well-established system. They also are using various kind of plagiarism detection software. So in that case, uh, it is very difficult to publish a plagiarized paper in good reputed publisher. Still, a lot of retracted and retraction cases are there, but sometimes the process is slow. So it takes time in retracting and declaring in under redaction clause. So uh, there are a number of initiatives publisher has taken to improve the quality of the system. Now, next part of the presentation, I will try to give you some guidance on how to detect plagiarism. You may be writing a very good quality paper. You may be writing a paper which is of excellent quality, but still there are chances that there may be some plagiarism in it. Now, how to avoid that plagiarism? First you should know what is plagiarism, where, and then you should know how to detect the plagiarism. So there are a number of tools for detection of plagiarism, both free and commercial subscribed product. In India, there are three major softwares used: Turnitin and Authenticate, Urkund. Turnitin and Authenticate from the same company. Urkund is uh, provided free of cost by the UGC implements eSource consortia to universities and colleges. So these are the three good software. Definitely, if you want me know which is the best software, undoubtedly I will say Turnitin or Authenticate as of now used in India. Reason, uh, quality of a plagiarism detection software depend on two things. One is the databases for content matching. You see the Turnitin coverage billions of web pages, millions of archived student paper, millions of articles from more than 110,000 journals. So the content matching is very good in case of Turnitin because it is linked with Crossref, and Crossref is the one of the highest number of repositories in terms of research content, academic content. Then another issue is the language, how many languages it can check, and it can check the contents in 27 languages. This is the another good quality of that particular software. That's why always use a good quality software. See, there are a number of advantages of these plagiarism detection software. It help in uh, preventing plagiarism. It helps in enhancing the quality of paper. It also helps in peer review system. It also helps in identification of various kind of errors because they also have some kind of English correction software, like, I mean, Turnitin, there is a erator. There is in Grammarly, there is a both plagiarism and grammar collection possibility. But despite of good things, every software has certain limitation. Like, no software can identify uh, plagiarism from non-online sources. Mathematical formulas, tables, graphs, images, all these things are not checked through any software. So it is limited, but it is better to have something than nothing. No software will tell you what is plagiarism. All software give you similarity index or similarity report. But before checking your content, there are certain kind of exclusions. So most important thing is that you should know what to exclude while checking a plagiarism content. Like when you are using Turnitin, Orukund or something, what need to be excluded? Bibliography, quotations, some minor matches like coincidental terms up to 14 word conjugative words. There are certain kind of like in case of same materials and methods and certain things which you feel are unavoidable or which are common knowledge, all these things need to be excluded. So when you are getting a similarity report like this, you need to analyze it. And how to analyze it? Right side is the similarities, left side is the content. So you have to see that what are the similarities to your content from the web. Now you have to analyze each and every similarity and you have to correct it. So what are the ways to correct it? Number one, if you miss the citation, correct the citation. Number two, you have given wrong citation, give the correct the citation. Number three, you may have copied which is not allowed. Then if you want to have that particular idea or content, then rewrite, either paraphrase it or summarize it, and then give citation. If something is common knowledge, ignore it. If something which you feel is coincidental, ignore it. Something which is unavoidable, ignore it. There is something which you feel is within the like same materials and methods, exclude it. So after analyzing, and something you feel is not required, you just delete it, right? So all these things are important in that context. So analyzing a particular similarity report is a very, very important step. And like many times people just hand over to some staff and ask them to give the report. The technical software also need to be understood, like how to check a particular report on on Orkund or on Turnitin, etc. Uh, these similarities, ideally speaking, 0% is the limit. Any similarities can be plagiarism. All similarities may not be plagiarism. Researcher and guide or supervisor are the best people to decide on the content related to common knowledge or coincidental or similar materials and methods. UGC plagiarism regulation are binding on all. You should not have more than 10% similarities. No university can have a limit more than that. Your PhD will not be valid. So this was the way how to detect plagiarism. Now prevention is the best way of avoiding plagiarism. Now how to avoid plagiarism? The best method for avoiding plagiarism is simply be honest. Write in your own language. Understand what is plagiarism, how to detect it, how to avoid it, understand what are the various kinds of reference management tools, how to cite automatically, and you must read the guidelines provided by your university, college, or institution, guidelines provided by the editor of the journal or the journal. See, first you decide in which journal you want to publish, then you should look for guidelines. And you should attend various kind of research methodology workshop, English remedial courses. You should attend training in various kind of reference management tools. You should regularly attend library orientation program. because many times people are not aware of the various kind of library resources. Author workshop should be organized by your library, some kind of technical writing workshop. Reading is an art. You must understand how to read, what to read, and how to get out of that reading. You should have an account in plagiarism detection software, Grammarly, reference management tools, and research forum, various kind of online discussion group, and how to do research. And as I mentioned earlier, NIT should develop plagiarism policy, and that policy should be made available on the website. So everybody should know what to do, what not to do, and how to do. ORCID, the first thing you should be registered here. If you are not registered, go and register today. It is free. There are a lot of advantages of ORCID. Number one, it helps in citation. Number two, when you are submitting a paper, you need not to provide your complete bio because your details provided in ORCID can be downloaded, can be seen by all the publishers. There are a number of other advantages of ORCID. You must take advantage of it. ORCID is a unique researcher ID, just like Aadhaar ID for Indian citizen. It is earlier there used to be researcher ID of Scopus and Thomson researcher ID, but now all those IDs have been superseded by this ORCID. ORCID is the most relevant and proper ID. You should be registered in these research forums like ResearchGate or Academia. Actually, these forums help in many ways. Once in enhancing visibility of research, in enhancing the usage of the research, and also help you in knowing research in progress. You also it also help many times you want some reference reading which is not available in your library. It might be available in this academia or ResearchGate, and also you can come in interaction with research or very a researcher in your field, and you can write a collaborative papers. You can be the co-author with any of the public writer. So another important thing is that your students or researchers should understand that when you are doing research, in research, search is very important component. So you should know what to search, how to search, what not to search. Many times we are using predatory resources or unauthenticated resources or resources which are not verified. So in that cost context, the proper literature review is very very important for research. Literature review is not just to write the thesis. Literature concept of literature review is that it make you understand through various relevant readings, databases, and texts for the search that what you are supposed to know, what you don't know, and what you are supposed to do. It help in ensuring search results, uh, and also it help in various kind of formulation of your hypothesis, your questions, and also help in various kind of understanding good quality resources in your area of interest. So when you are doing a good literature search or good literature review, you have to really understand how to do a good literature review. You also need to understand the professional credential of the authors, reputation of authors, and you also need to note it down the relevant keywords and phrases. And when you are framing a research question in terms of existing literature, you should also see the information which you are using should be reliable, should be error free, should be factual, should be relevant, should be unbiased, should be verifiable, and provide in-depth coverage of on the subject. So for that, you also need to understand how to search. Internet is a very good tool, but everything available on internet is not useful. It is not useful for your research. It is not useful for your research writing. So how to basically search a good information? And for that, you really need to understand that Google is not sufficient to provide you good research results. Google or any other standard search engines provide access to just 15 to 20% web content. What about 80 to 85% content? Point number two, Google or any standard search engines does not certify the authenticity of the information. Information is fake or relevant or irrelevant. Google will never tell you. While searching on Google or any standard search engine, you may not get most relevant results higher up in relevancy ranking. Like I was searching for best open access journal and the result was Omics International. Omics International is a predatory publisher. So I'm asking Google to give me the top open access journal, and it is telling me that number one ranking is uh, a predatory journal publisher, Omics, which US federal government has filed a case against that. Now, this is a worldwide web is huge. So how to deal with this information overload? This is very important issue, and we need to understand internet is not library. Internet is not even digital library. Library is acquiring all the most relevant authenticated peer review information. So you can refer any document in the library. It is not fake, it is not uh, irrelevant. So similarly, you have to identify on this information World Wide Web, which is divided into three parts: surface web, deep web, dark web. And this deep web contains a lot of academic information, government resources. Now, how to search that deep web, which is huge? It is near about 2,000 times greater than the quality of the service web. It is having more than 1 billion individual document, 550 billion individual document. Uh, uh, so basically, and 90% of the deep web is free. How to search that deep web? There are different kind of specific search engines. Uh, so you as a researcher should know what are the search engines to search on deep web. Like there are various kind of semantic search tools and databases. Meta search engines like Academic Index, journal search engines and databases like Oyster, academic search engines and databases like Google Scholar, scientific search engines and databases like GoPubMed, collaborative information and databases like Delicious, open access search engines like Core. So, as a researcher, first you become a good searcher. If you don't know how to search, what to search, where to search, when to search, what not to search, then you will not be searching the right material for your research. So the first important thing in this direction is to become a good searcher. Now, second important thing in this direction is to understand referencing. What is citation? How do I cite a source? When do I need to cite? What is bibliography? Difference between bibliography and annotated bibliography. Difference between references and bibliography. Difference between endnote and footnotes. Difference between various kind of footnotes and bibliography. All these referencing need to be understood, and if you don't know, then you will not able to do a right citation. What is citation? Citation means simply giving get credit to the original creator of the information. The person who has first time written that information, he should be credited. And for crediting that information, because that information may be in form of an article, in form of a book, in form of a website, in form of a uh, monograph, blog, uh, Twitter, Facebook, or any kind of source. So now, how to render the bibliographic information of that particular source? So there is a different citation styles. In humanities, MLA is the most popular one. In social sciences, APA is the most popular citation style. Similarly, in sciences, ACS, IEEE, NLM, Vancouver. So, in these citation style, there is a rendering sequences for the different type of publication. Now, when you are writing a paper, guidelines it will be written that what kind of citation style you have to adopt. So based on those guidelines, you have to do the referencing, you have to do the citation. But it's this rendering of the various kind of citation style. If you don't want to learn it, so then better to learn reference management tools like Mendeley, EndNote, or Zotero. That's the best way to know it. Now, when you start writing paper, so you have to really very you have to plan your writings. You have to plan your particular writings in such a way that a preliminary draft without looking at your notes. Leave spaces where you think you will want to include quotes or support material. Use your own words as much as possible. No one expects you to write like an expert or a professional writer. You should, however, write like a serious, intelligent student researcher and give citation to all the resources which you have used in that document. When you are writing a paper or book or any other research references, there is only there are only three ways where you can use other references: summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting. There is no other way you can use others material. And when you are summarizing, how to summarize, when and how to summarize. When you summarize, you provide your readers with a condensed version of an author's key points. A summary can be short as a few sentences or much longer, depending on the complexity of the text and the level of detail you wish to provide to your readers. Paraphrasing is the another way of using different references, sources in your writing. A paraphrase is a restatement in your own words of someone else's idea. Changing a few words of the original sentence does not make your writing legitimate paraphrase. You must change both the words and sentences structure of the original without changing the content. And also keep it in mind, the paraphrase message still requires citation because the ideas come from somebody else. It is not your idea. And as a smart researcher, writer, you should change the order and structure of the sentence. Use synonyms, different forms of the word. May change the voice or perspective. So, in that context, this is important to do a good paraphrase. Third way is quotation. What is quoting? When to quote? How much to quote? How do I incorporate quotation in my paper? Quoting within quotes. How do I include long quotes in my paper? Single versus double quotation. Punctuating quotation. When to quote? The basic rule of thumb in all discipline is that you should only quote directly from a text when it is important for your reader to see the actual language used by the author of the source. So until unless it is not quotation is not to increase the number of words. It is to justify an argument. It is to justify a particular position. It is to authenticate certain your results or your argument or your opinions. So you should be very clear when to use a particular quotation. How much? Anything beyond four consecutive words need to be cited. This is international standard. A quote is word, sentence, or sentences that a writer copies exactly from a source. A quote is enclosed in quotation marks for quotes up to 39 words. But if quotation is 40 or more words, it stands alone without quotation marks and is indented 5 spaces from the left margin. Means these rules you should know that how to use how much quotation and how to use the quotation. If you are using automatic citation tools like Mendeley and Note, you need not to remember it because these software automatically take care of these rules. Single versus double quotations. You should use double quotation marks when you quote material from a source. If you are also quoting passages from that source that were quoted in the original source, use single quotation marks to indicate that the original source contained the quotation. If the system of punctuation, how to punctuate quotation? So if the system of punctuation used in United States, comma, periods and commas go inside quotation marks, except when you use in text edit. In those cases, periods and commas go inside, outside the quotation mark. So this need to be understood. Now after those three things, the only other way is common knowledge, something a well-known fact, information that is likely to appear in numerous sources and to be familiar to large number of people, which is becoming a universal knowledge, universal phenomena. and people are very frequently using that. So that is the only time you need not to cite the information, provided that you do not copy that information word for word from a source. So this is the kind of uh, uh, definition of common knowledge. Example, like smoking can cause respiratory diseases such as emphysema and cancer. This is known to the people, and if you are writing it like this, there is no harm in that, because this information is known to many people. Like we are talking about current situation, Corona. So social distancing is very important uh, to protect ourselves from Corona. This is a statement everybody will make it. So this has now become a common knowledge. So this is example of common knowledge. Some other important thing you should remember: plagiarism and group work. Some assignments and assigned practical tasks require you to work in groups. Sometimes you will submit a single piece of work as a joint report, and other times you will work together but submit separate reports. In all cases, you need to cite the source, or you need to acknowledge all the collaborators. In both the cases, you cannot leave without credit. This is important thing for PhD students. If you are a PhD student and you have written papers during the period of the research on the topic of the research, and she or he is the first author, you can include your paper in the thesis as it is. This is not included in plagiarism. These are excluded. So this is something. This is the international practices and followed everywhere. So now, next thing which I want to tell you, that if you avoiding uh, mistakes in citation is very good, and that avoided plagiarism also. There are a number of reference management citation tools. The important one is the EndNote, which is available with Web of Science or Web of Knowledge. So you can learn this. Another is the Mendeley. Mendeley is a free reference manager. It is having desktop and web version. Web version is having limitation of 12 gigabyte web space, but you can have anything in desktop version. If you want more web space, then you have to subscribe it. This is very good software. I really, and this is not just a reference citation tool. It's a social networking platform. It is a research networking platform. It also helps in managing research. It also helps you in creating various kind of research diary or research notes. It is having a very good in desktop view, you can keep your research writing, all your research uh, in progress, your paper published, everything you can keep in this Mendeley. And then these information are used from time to time. Like when you are reading a paper, when you are reading an article or a book, ebook, download in Mendeley. And then when you are reading it, you should use the PDF viewer, and by opening the PDF file, you can just underline, you can highlight, you can put some kind of notes, I want to use this as a para, I want to use this as a summary. So in that way, and whatever point notes you are making, highlighting or underlining, this will be automatically saved. And now when you are going to write a paper, go to MS Word, start writing a paper, and you want to insert a quotation. You install the Mendeley plugin and click on the Mendeley plugin, insert quotation, and you come to this Mendeley, this particular folder, open the file, and after opening the file, you highlight that portion and insert that portion into your paper as a quotation. So quotation will also automatically inserted, numbering will be done, reference list will be generated. Mendeley also help in development of bibliography and reference list. It's a very good tool. Zotero is another good tool, and this is also a reference manager. And luckily, you have very knowledgeable person, Dr. D.P. Tripathi, who is an expert on both Mendeley and Zotero, and he is training a lot of researcher all over India, and you can do wonderful training to all the faculty and student of NIT. I'm sure he will be already doing it, so you can take advantage of his knowledge and learn these software. You can have mastery in any one software. You choose either Zotero or Mendeley. I recommend these two. Both are free, open source, so you can use either of these software. There are certain other important things which as a researcher, you should know about that. When you are publishing your paper, you are publishing your research paper, you should avoid duplicate or redundant publishing. What is that duplicate or redundant publishing? Publishing same paper or subsequently similar paper with citation and obtaining permission of copyright holder without permission of the copyright holder. So you should not publish same or similar paper. Sometimes you are basically using the same data uh, and you are publishing, that is also not acceptable. So if you want to republish a paper, there is a norm for it. You have to obtain the permission of the copyright holder, inform the editor of the previous journal and approval of the proposed journal, and declare information about previously published journal and give citation. This I am recommending in case of like your paper has published in local language and now you want to publish in English. So then you can do it. Otherwise, and that also with the permission. You cannot do otherwise. Simultaneous publishing, submitting same paper simultaneously to or more journals. It is not allowed. It is also called duplicate submission or multiple submission. See, in case any publication is delaying, you first withdraw your paper and then submit to other publisher. You cannot resubmit the paper without obtaining the permission from the previously submitted paper editor. So, what is the best way? Display and when you are submitting this kind of, like, there is some need where you want to publish two papers from the same data or similar data. It is important that you should follow these guidelines. Disclose the details of two uh, uh, papers to both journals, inform editors of both journals, and attach copies to uh, all the editors of both the journals. Salami slicing or salami publication. Slicing of research contents from a meaningful paper to different papers. A single research is divided in sliding. So this is, people do it for to increase publication count, to get more recognition, to get promotion, to get several funding. So breaking up study in parts to show separate study. Uh, pu- Publishing in two or more languages with due permission may be permissible. If necessary, editors should be informed and copies of other published papers from same study should be attached. So these are the certain things which you should know about salami slicing. Ghost writing is also a kind of offense, punishable offense. You should avoid ghost writing. You should also not to publish in predatory journal. What is a predatory journal? Predatory journal is basically an open access journal, uh, which uh, which is not following like proper review. It is also not having various kind of uh, reputation, authenticity, and they are just misusing the people's contents, and there are a number of ways you can identify these publishers. Generally, these publishers are not having a single editor. There is a big editor board, and you will not find any known names in those editor board. They never give you sufficient information about the author fees or various kind of indexing and other things. The 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 various kind of other like these journals always say leading publisher or important publisher. So in that case, I think I'm giving you this tips to understand. This is important to check before publishing any journal, and it is important how to choose a good quality journal. So you should, if you want to publish in open access journal, you should check is this publisher is a member of recognized industry like COPE or DOJ or OSPA, or the most importantly, is it part of UGC care list? As a researcher, you should not publish your article or your research in any publication which is not authenticated or which is not part of UGC care list. What is UGC care list? UGC care list, there are two group 1 and group list, and group 2 consists of all the journals indexed in Scopus, and there are a number of web of knowledge product. So this is a group 2. Group 1 is those journals which are not indexed in Scopus and web of knowledge, but are good important journals. So there is a committee constituted by uh, this UGC care, and that committee decide and include uh, by following certain parameters, certain protocols. So in that way, you can, if journal is not listed in UGC care, you can request. Currently, such 300 such journals have already been included in the list too. So you should not publish any of your article in pedantry journals. And if you want to publish an article in good journal, first check is it part of UGC care list or not. Then there is another, I have not included those slides in this presentation. There are a number of publishers who are offering a various kind of sites to choose a journal, like Springer Finder journal, Journal Finder by Elsevier, and similarly there is a similar journal by the Bailey, by the Springer, by the, there is a number of other websites which help in choosing a journal. And how to choose? You prepare an abstract of a journal article and title of the article, and by using your title of article and abstract of that particular article, you can choose a particular journal how to publish, and you will get a recommendation references that this journal can be published, this article can be published in this journal. So let me conclude by giving you plagiarism is not good for you. Any awareness about plagiarism or guidelines prepared are in the interest of the researcher and students only. So you should follow all those guidelines. You should follow all the norms, standards, conventions, practices. And the most important thing is that this particular awareness, counseling, or whatever workshops, everything is in the interest of the research community. Your reputation is built on the basis of quality article, not the number of articles. Number of articles never give you a kind of reputation. People people give you respect. If you have written only one excellent article, people recognize you. You may have written 100 articles, but nobody may knows you. You don't have any citation. So always think of writing a quality article, not worry about the numbers. India is number 5 in terms of research output, but we are not among top 20 countries in terms of original research. Our average citation score is less than 1. So you should aim for quality, and quality can only be achieved by hard work, sincerity, and knowing good rules, following conventions. So I think with these words, I close it here. I acknowledge all the sources I have referred in this presentation, and these are my email IDs. You can note it down. I will try to respond to your questions now after coming back to the platform. in the studio. But in case if any question is left, feel free to write to me. So I will stop share my screen and will come back to the studio and uh, I thank Dr. D.B. Tripathi for his uh, inviting me and thank you all for patience hearing. Yes, DP. Now, you.
Sir, first of all, sir, thank you very much for this session. It has really been very informative, and you have thrown light on different aspects of research publication ethics and plagiarism and predatory journal and how to choose journal. So many information you have given, which is really going to be very useful for all of us, including the research scholars and all those who are involved in research writing and preparing the research proposal. So first, sir, thank you very much for delivering a very informative talk. Now I request all the participants to please, if you have any query or question, so you can just type in the chat box and that question will appear on the screen and I also will read. So sir will be answering. Some of the question in between I could read that was related to predatory journal, that how we can identify the predatory journal. Sir, I think has already given the answer. Mr. Rakesh Kumar Bansal, I think, was writing something. I'll just I'll read his. How to identify predatory journal. This was the question from Mr. Ajay Biswas.
So basically, I think
So,
in addition to what I
sir,
have informed them, there are certain sites also. Like you can use earlier there used to be uh, like only one site. Now there are 2 3 sites like Think and Check is also there. Think Check Summit, and the most importantly, uh, instead of looking for those things, first they should look for UGC care list, because the UGC care list has been developed keeping in mind that our students or our researchers should not publish in predatory journal. So if you follow the UGC care list, you are already avoiding predatory journals, because currently there is no predatory journal which is part of UGC care list.
thank you, sir. Next question is from Mr. Dev Kumar. His question is how to get recommendation of journal based on
See,
abstract.
most of these sites which are uh, like Elsevier is having, Springer is having, Wiley is having, there are subject specific publishing website. So you prepare your abstract and type the title of your article, and if you submit that to that particular site, you will get recommendation based on your abstract, this is the most suitable journal for publishing your article. uh, but there are certain sites which provide access to all the journals across various publishers. Like uh, I have not included some slides in this presentation because that particular talk is itself required more than, see, basically most of the topic which I have covered, I have given you the glimpses of that. But many of these topics require a detail, like how to choose a quality journal itself required a 1.5 hour discussion or presentation, because there are a number of points, like when you are choosing a journal, there are a number of parameters how to choose a quality journal, starting from peer review system to the editorial board, the frequency, the periodicity. So these sites are very good in checking. So two things which is important: one is UGC care list, another, after that you go to the, first you go to the journal site and choose a journal and then check in UGC care list. That is the best way to select a journal for your article.
Sir, thank you very much. I think I have been watching your presentation, and in my opinion, all the answers are there in your presentation itself. So those who missed the presentation, they can re-watch the whole video. That will be available on YouTube. I will also share the link again to all the participants. I can see many good comments, and one from our Professor Jayantu sir. He has written a very good comment, very informative talk, highly useful for our beloved scholars and faculty. Thank you very much for your kind words, sir. We also hope that it is going to be very useful for our scholars and everyone. And sir, another question is from Professor Sampati Goswami. How to get information about the journal where publication fee is zero?
See, this generally the guidelines of the particular journal, these things are mentioned, but there is a different open access model, platinum and I think bronze. These are the two model. If journal is part of platinum model or bronze model of open access, that is understood that these publications are not charging author fee, author processing charges. So any journal is listed under platinum or bronze category. It is having a zero publication author processing charge fee. Another is that uh, library can take initiative by becoming a membership of certain open access models like Biomed Central, or there are a number of open access membership. So in that membership, sometime like as a member, you get APC charges free. As such, there is no tool to just find out which are the journals. But these are the few category which I remember, which are possible to have zero fee journals, which are not charging any open access author processing charges.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your time and your wonderful talk. Some of the other comments and questions are there. I'll just read one of them. One question is from Jisa. Sir, what is the accepted percentage of similarity index? It depends upon the journal?
Uh, See, there are two things in that. First is that as a Indian researcher, you are supposed to follow UGC regulation. And as per UGC regulation, you cannot have more than 10% similarities in your writing. Generally, जो publishers are having even higher acceptability. Like a publisher is not directly going by the similarity percentage. Even similarity paper with 30% similarity may be accepted for review. They finally take decision based on the contents and similarities later. But for the review purpose, even a paper with 30%, 25% similarities can be accepted. But as I mentioned that even a publisher is publishing your paper with higher percentage similarities and UGC is not allowing 10%, then you have to restrict. You don't have any option. You don't have any choice, because if your paper is having more than 10% similarities after 31st July 2018, you are liable to be punished for that.
So thank you very much. Thank you. I think you have answered all the queries, and also you have given much detailed information in your presentation. And those who missed the beginning or in between the presentation, some of the information, they can re-watch the video. This will be available on YouTube. I will share the link to all the participants. So, sir, on behalf of NIT Rourkela and all the participants, we again express our sincere thanks to you, sir, for your valuable time and accepting our invitation to deliver talk on this topic and enlightening all the participants, all of us, for enriching our knowledge. So once again, sir, thank you. And I express my sincere thanks to our Professor S.K. Patel, sir, Dean Academic, who has means always encouraged to take part in such activities and conduct such activities for the benefit of research scholars, students, faculty of NIT Rourkela. Thank you, sir, to you as well. And sir, once again, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you all the participants for joining this session. So
Thank
shall
you,
we
Dr.
include?
Tripathi. Yeah, please. Thank you, Dr. Tripathi, and please take care. And thank you, Professor Patel, and look forward to your interaction. Thank you. It was nice to be with all of you. Namaskar.
Okay, thank you, sir. Wish you all a very happy evening. Thank you.
Thank you.